Okay, we'll call this July meeting of the County Planning Commission to order. We know this is still June, but this is a July meeting in order to avoid the holiday week. Ms. Worley, can you confirm that we have a quorum?
Mr. Myers is absent, but you do have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly God, we thank you for the opportunity to come together and gather tonight. We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meetings so it was full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this evening. Amen.
Amen. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes of the last meeting? Are there any comments, corrections, or revisions? Hearing none.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are adopted. Do we have any changes to the agenda this evening, Ms. Worley?
No, sir.
All right, we will proceed in order. I'd like to open a citizen comment period. This would be for any matters that are not on tonight's agenda. Just come to the podium, give us your name and address, and let us hear from you if you have anything you'd like to speak to. Seeing none, we'll close the citizen comment period. Ms. Worley, would you call the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, your first item this evening is an action item. It's not a public hearing. It's in District 4. It's a subdivision exception request by Matthew and Anna Richardson for an exception to the subdivision ordinance for tax map number 44164, pursuant to Article 9, requesting an exception to Article 6, Section 3, to allow a third access drive for a proposed subdivision.
Thank you, Ms. Worley. Good evening. Greg Garrison, Principal Planner. This is a subdivision exception request to add a third driveway onto a public right-of-way. This is only reviewed by the Planning Commission and there will be no board action. The property is located about on west line of Cardwell Road, about a mile south of Randolph Elementary School. 2035 comprehensive plan recommends rural enhancement. Current zoning is agriculture limited. To the north is B1 property, and that's the church and private school that's operating there currently. The rest of the properties to the south, west, and east are all zoned agriculture limited. Site is about 40% wooded, with the rest being open pasture. The subject property, the applicant is the contract purchaser for the subject tract of land. The applicant would like to divide the 95-acre tract into 4 parcels, utilizing 3 driveways. There's a creek that bisects the property, about right there. You see that?
Okay.
There's an existing farm entrance on each side of that creek. The applicant would like to add a third driveway to the north that would serve lots 1 and 2. The subdivision ordinance limits a parcel to 2 access drives onto an existing road by right. However, there is a provision that allows the Planning Commission to review and approve a subdivision with additional access drives. Per the zoning regulations, the minimum lot size for A2 zoning is 3 acres, and this proposal does meet that requirement. The subject property is a parent tract and has not been previously subdivided. In accordance with the parent tract provisions, the 95-acre tract could be subdivided into 4 small 3-acre parcels or 2 20-acre parcels. Subdividing lots in accordance with parent tract regulations are reviewed with a minor subdivision application and may be approved administratively by the plats officer. However, if a subdivision has more than 2 access drives to an existing road, then it is reviewed by the Planning Commission. Without Planning Commission approval, the applicant would be limited to 2 access drives. The Planning Commission may approve exceptions to the subdivision regulations, provided that findings based upon the evidence presented meet the following criteria. Number 1, granting of this exception will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare, nor will it be injurious to other properties or improvements in the surrounding area. Number 2, the conditions upon which the request for a variation is based includes a creek that presents a unique challenge to the property that is not applicable to other property. Number 3, because of the creek and its location, a particular hardship to the owner would result if the strict letter of the regulations were carried out. And number 4, the cost of the strict or literal compliance with the subdivision regulations is not the sole reason for granting this exception. To provide access to the 2 smaller subdivision lots, a bridge would have to be constructed. There are concerns with safety and maintenance of this type of facility that would serve only 2 lots. Should the Planning Commission approve this request, the only condition staff recommends is the access drive shall conform generally to the conceptual plan attached hereto as Exhibit A. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Matt?
Were there any site distance issues with the proposed drive?
VDOT will actually look for that when the land disturbance permit comes in for the right-of-way improvements.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? Gentlemen, what's your pleasure on this application?
Anyone?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The application is approved, and this does not have to go to the board, Craig?
No, sir.
Good.
All right.
Next item?
Greg Garrison, Principal Planner. This is a rezoning request for 5 acres at 3500 Lowry Road. Subject parcel is located in the western part of the county. 2035 Comprehensive Plan recommends rural enhancement for this area. Current zoning is agriculture limited. Agriculture general? No, agriculture general, sorry. Mixed them up. If you'll recall, the Paquette, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was recently rezoned not too long ago for 10 acres just to the south there for a very similar application. The site is mostly wooded, appears to have been timbered at some point. Currently, there is a mobile home with a driveway that connects to Lowry Road. Since all the by right subdivision splits have been taken from the original parent tract called Lantana North, which was approved in 2000, the applicant needs to rezone the property from agriculture zoning to a residential zoning in order to file the appropriate subdivision application. In accordance with the county subdivision ordinance, the creation of additional lots may be considered by a major subdivision application at less than 50 lots. The subdivision plat may be approved administratively. Major subdivisions are not permitted in the county's agriculture zoning districts. Therefore, approval of this rezoning application is required prior to submitting a major subdivision application for the property. The county's proffer policy does not apply to cases consisting of 1 additional lot. Therefore, this application does not invoke the county's development impact policy. A community meeting was held on May 2nd, 2018 on the property. Staff and 2 adjoining property owners attended the meeting. The request was supported by the adjoining property owners. Should the Planning Commission recommend approval, the staff recommends the only one proffer, and that's that the property will not be divided any further. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Garrison? Are the applicants present? Would you like to come forward and share with us any further information?
No, I don't have any further information, but I'm happy to take questions, answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Did staff have any other concerns with the division?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to open to a public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing period. Gentlemen, any further questions or discussion? What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval. Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The application is recommended for approval. Ms. Worley?
Mr. Chairman, your next public hearing item this evening is in District 3. It's a conditional use permit. Application filed by Robin Caspary Lee requesting a conditional use permit for a place of public assembly at 2192 Shepherdtown Road on tax map number 4314A to operate a wedding and event venue. The property is zoned A2 and is 56.67 acres. The CUP is required by Article 3, Section 320 of the Goochland zoning ordinance, and the comprehensive plan designates this area as rural enhancement.
Thank you, Ms. Worley. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Joanne Hunter, Director of Community Development. I thought Sarah had to bring it up. It was just on the behind us. Thank you. As Ms. Worley indicated, this is a conditional use application for a wedding and event center for a primary outdoor facility. Property is located just east of the Courthouse Village area on Shepherdtown Road. You can see the property is designated on the comprehensive plan as rural enhancement area. There is a small red circle in the center that is a separate parcel that is owned by a family member. It's not part of this zoning, this recup application. The property is zoned A2, and you can see that most of the properties surrounding this are large lot residential. This property is approximately 56 acres, and most of the properties around here are in the 20 to 30 acre range. There are a few smaller ones that are about 10 acres to the northwest of this property. This is the aerial photo. You can see they have frontage and access off of Shepherdtown Road. You can see the property has a lake, large lake on the property. The circled area represents about 3 acres of property. That is where they would have the wedding event take place. This is a blow up of the area, so Shepherdtown Road would be off the map here. Where they're showing to have parking is in the existing horse area where that's already packed down and in good shape for parking. The wedding area would be located here. You could see that would be a view overlooking the lake. They do have 2 accessory buildings on the property that would be used in accordance with the event center. They have the horse barn, which is located here. What their thought process is the upstairs could be used for the dressing of the bride or small events, that sort of thing. And then they also have a hay barn that could also be used as part of the wedding venue. They have had a sound engineer come out to the site and look at the property since this would be an outdoor wedding event center with outdoor music. And the sound engineer had indicated that if they had the speakers directed towards the lake, it would limit the impacts of sound on Shepherdtown Road. Most of the activities, as I said, would be outdoors. The conditional use permit with the conditions, it would limit the applicant to 1 public assembly event per week. No event would be able to exceed 200 people, and they're not proposing at this time any new buildings with the use. Based on our CUP policy, we would consider this a high-impact use due to potential for noise and impacts on neighbors. So we would be recommending a 5-year time frame so that we can evaluate in 5 years to see if there's any impacts on the neighbors or any conditions that we need to revise or add. There was a community meeting on March 29th. No one from the public came to the meeting. The applicant has indicated that they've gone around and talked to all their neighbors, and their neighbors are supportive of this request. So the conditions that we're recommending, these are fairly standard conditions. These are the same conditions or similar conditions to which ones we've had for the Bandits Ridge Public Assembly use. That's on Broad Street in the western portion of the county. And I'll quickly review them with you now. The use would be limited to the place of public assembly for venues such as weddings, rehearsal dinners, open houses, charitable events, and similar activities. The improvements shall conform to the conceptual site plan that was included with the application. A plan of development shall be submitted and approved prior to any CUP activities being held. A parking waiver, this is actually a waiver that needs to be granted by the Board of Supervisors, but we've done that for our agribusiness activities. Our zoning ordinance requires if you have over 10 spaces, they have to be paved. We do have the waiver process, and with other agribusiness uses, we have waived that parking requirement so that it does not have to be paved, and that would be something that the board would be reviewing as part of their application. Parking would be prohibited on Shepherdtown Road. Internal access to the parking areas would need to meet all standards by the building official and the fire rescue chief, so the existing driveway probably will need to be widened so that fire trucks could get down there or any other public safety vehicles. Signage would be permitted, but it could be no larger than 12 square feet. If they have any lighting on the property, it would need to be dark sky compliant. As I indicated in the presentation, the number of guests would be limited to 200 people, and there can only be one activity per week. The hours of operation would be limited to noon to 8 on Fridays, 9 to 11 p.m. On Saturdays, with amplified sound ceasing at 10. And 11 to 10 on Sunday with amplified sound ceasing at 9, and no CUP activities Monday through Thursday. For the amplified sound condition, it states no sound or music, amplified or acoustic, shall be plainly audible beyond any exterior boundary of the property. Music or sound shall be managed to minimize the sound transmission to adjacent properties, and the use of subwoofers is prohibited. It's the subwoofers which causes that bass sound, so that would not be permitted. If they have a CUP activity that is a paid event and they have music, alcohol, and more than 100 people, they would need to have a uniform security guard or an off-duty Goochland sheriff. Alcohol consumption, they'll need to meet all the ABC requirements. They can have no fireworks, and we ask that the applicant provide us with an annual schedule of activities that we would just know when there's events going on, so that if there's any issues, we know if someone calls about them. As indicated, we were recommending a 5-year time frame, and then our standard transfer of ownership or lease condition. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You said all these conditions are consistent with what we've done for the other wedding venues.
Yes, they're consistent, very consistent. Each one is tweaked a little bit per site, but Dover Hall, Bandits Ridge, they all have the same conditions.
Is the applicant in agreement with your recommendations?
The applicant, I'll let them speak to it, but the conditions have been reviewed with the applicant. Yes.
Any other questions for Joanne? Thank you, Joanne.
Okay, thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward and share with us any further information?
I don't have any further information, but I'm here for questions.
Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you. I'll open a public a public comment period. Anyone that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this application, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any further comment or discussion, gentlemen? This is in your district, Carter. Any comment?
No.
Motion.
Yeah, I moved it.
Right.
Yes, yeah. I
It's
moved
been-
that we approve it.
It's been moved that we approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The application is recommended for approval. Whit, I guess the next is yours.
These are the more exciting things. All right, good evening. I'm Whit Marshall, the Assistant County Attorney. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I have 2 items for public hearing this evening. They are both stem from the previous General Assembly session and their updates proposed. One is for, I believe the first one is to the subdivision ordinance, and the second one will be to the variance provisions of the zoning ordinance. So the first one, this is dealing with final plat submissions. In our ordinance, we have a lot of language and pre-submission requirements that someone would have to meet before they could actually file their application for a final plat. However, the SB 993 prohibits any of these pre-application requirements that many counties had implemented. The philosophy behind implementing them is to get the best applications, work with them and get the best applications forward. However, in practice, we have not been doing the pre-application things, but they remain within our ordinance. So we just need to remove them. What this practically means is good news. Nothing is going to change from the applicant's perspective. The process doesn't change. We weren't enforcing or requiring the pre-application requirements. Staff, as always, is available to do those sorts of things if the applicant wants additional help before they file their application. That's always available. However, it cannot be required under state law. So to do that, we're proposing to remove those particular provisions in the subdivision ordinance. So you'll see we've changed the title just to remove preliminary or any sort of sense that there are any pre-application requirements. We've removed all the language referencing pre-application requirements, and we've tried to be clear about the application and that an application is deemed submitted when it's a complete application with accompanying fees. And also, we list out the required submissions to come in with the application. So that's all clear and separated, and that it's all due at the same time. There's no pre-application requirement. Section 8.2, this is the tentative plat provision. We aren't proposing any edits to that. It's just in between where the edits are, so I didn't want you to be confused. As you may recall, several years ago, the state law changed with regard to tentative plats, which is why you only see them for developments over 50 lots, and it's optional. So you don't see as many tentative plats. So we didn't clean up the language in the subsequent thing about the final plat, so we had to remove a lot of things that assumed that there would be a tentative plat because it's optional for many people now. So it's more of a language cleanup in the 3rd section. And that's about it on that one. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I have one. So we're not really proposing any change to the current process. We're simply bringing the language in compliance with the state code.
Yes, sir. So our ordinance will match the state code.
Got it. Gentlemen, any questions or comments?
It is a public hearing item.
Exactly. I'll open a public hearing. Is anyone who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions for the from the commission?
I have none. I make a motion we approve this.
You want a second? You want a second? Yeah, I'll second this.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the changes to the county procedures in tentative plat approval be recommended for approval. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
The changes are recommended for approval.
All right, and now on to your second one this evening. This is a state law change dealing with variances. As you're aware, the BZA hears applications for variances, and there are very specific standards and grounds upon which the BZA is authorized to grant variances to our ordinances. What this will do is to add another way for them to grant a variance. And this is specific to people with disabilities who need some sort of a reasonable modification, be it a ramp that may go into the setback area. It enables the BZA to use those grounds to grant a variance to accommodate that. Also, interestingly, these particular variances are able to expire when the person who needs the accommodation is no longer in the home or building. So if they get better or they move, then the BZA, if they conditioned it to expire, then someone would have to remove the ramp or whatnot. But that's essentially what it is. You can see we added language just incorporating the state code language so that any citizen who reads our code will know that that is an option for people who choose to remedy something because they have a disability. They can go and seek a variance for that. And that concludes my presentation on that one. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Whit? We'll open a public hearing. Anyone here who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this clarification? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I do have one question, Whit.
Yes, sir.
I see House Bill 796. Was that introduced in the last General Assembly session? Do you know?
I don't know the origin of it. I just know it was enacted this year.
And it's been signed by the governor?
Yes, sir.
It must have been, right?
It's in. We get a whole breakdown from the local government. We review all of the bills that are associated. It was included in that and didn't have a disclaimer that the governor had not signed it. So,
I have one question. If, let's say someone is disabled. Obviously, if they move, they're no longer occupying the property. They would have to remove said ramp. So it's an occupancy, or if the person is better. How the county, just to state for clarification, how do we police that as a county? Is it complaint based?
Yes, it would be the same as proffers or conditions. Right. We'd have to be aware of it, or if some other, of course, if we're looking into something else and that's there. Right. You're yeah,
Mr. Jones doesn't live there anymore. The handicap ramp should have been gone a long time ago.
But no, we're not sending county staff out trying to harass disabled people and figure out if they're still living where they have their variance.
Right, understood. Thank you.
All right. We have had the public hearing, right?
Yes, that was just my question. Yep.
Right. All right. Any further comments or questions by the commission?
No.
Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I move we approve this change to the zoning.
Yeah, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comment or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The changes are recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Ms. Worley, any further business?
No, sir.
Any old business or new business?
No, sir.
Very good. Gentlemen, is there a motion to?
So moved.
Having no further business, it's been moved that we adjourn. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.